Hello friends, hoping all of you are fit and fine. And today we are starting a new chapter of Indian economy, that is fiscal system. You should remember that the economy of any country is run with the help of two kind of systems: fiscal system and monetary system. We have already discussed too much under financial system regarding the monetary system. Monetary system relates to the money, banking, financial transaction and all the related issues, and responsibility goes to the central bank of the country, means in case of India to RBI. And another, fiscal system is the system of income and expenditure of the government, and responsibility goes to the government, existing government of the country. So this is the chapter we are going to start here properly, covering each and every aspects which is important for the examination point of view. So you remember that reflecting on the screen also. Just go through the screen. Fiscal system refers to the system of income and expenditure of the government, and it is operated through fiscal policy, which means that to conduct its system, to implement the system, to operate the system, whatever the policies are adopted, referred to as fiscal policies. It means fiscal policies are the policies of income and expenditure of the government. Fiscal policy is the tool to achieve following long-term indicators. You must remember, these are the long-term indicators, means long-term objectives which each and every government just try to achieve these objectives. And these are the common objectives to each and every government that needs to be achieved. First one is to ensure optimum utilization of resources. Meaning is that whatever the resources are available in our country, like physical resources, natural resources, human resources, capital resources, whatever it may be, it must be properly utilized. Optimum utilization means up to the maximum level, up to the potential. Okay, so it's a big issue. Technically, this could be also expressed as to achieve the situation of full employment. The concept of full employment was set out by one of the classical economists, Keynes, and technically the meaning is different, but usually full employment means generally common man thinks that to provide employment to everyone. No, the technical and the exact meaning of full employment and a situation of full employment is the optimum utilization of resources, means all the resources available within the country that must be properly utilized, that must be properly made productive. Second long-term objective of the fiscal policy is to achieve high growth rate. Easy to understand, every government, each and every government always thinks, always plan that how to achieve the high growth rate of economy. Third one is to reduce income disparities. In a country like India, income disparities are always in use. You might have heard from time to time that through the different kind of reports, the gap between rich and poor is widening day by day. We have already talked about the dual economy or dualistic economy, when two type of system in our country, so that these income gaps are widening day by day. So this is the prime objective of the government, to provide a level playing field for each and everyone. Doesn't mean that to disturb anyone, but income disparities should be minimized through the affirmative policies of the government. Okay. Fourth objective is to control inflation. Inflation we have already discussed too much. It's one of the macroeconomic situation in the country, and overall the impact of inflation is negative for the society and overall economy. Therefore, it needs to be controlled, it needs to be properly managed, and the process is going on. The next, uh, the last, you can say, last objective, long-term objective of the fiscal system and fiscal policy is to encourage savings and investment for high rate of capital formation. Just try to understand here. Savings plays vital role in an economy like India. Unlike developed countries, in developing countries, savings plays important role. See, equations are quite clear. You'll have to understand. As much as you'll save, the amount will be invested. The same amount would be available in form of investment for different kind of economic activities. Think simply, saving doesn't mean that to maintain money inside the house. No. Savings means to save the money to any kind of institutional sources, institutional methods like FD, purchasing different kind of insurances, in such a way in post offices, whatever the instruments are available in the organized sector of savings. And if you are going to save in such a way that is beneficial for economy, and you must remember that in such a way indirectly you are playing vital role for the economic development. So as if the rate of savings will be high, the rate of investment will be high. When the rate of investment will be high, this will create more capital formation, more capital will be generated. Capital formation means capital formation could be understood in two ways. In monetary matter, in monetary manner, suppose you deposited in a bank, or you made a fixed deposit of 1 lakh, and after 1 and 2 years it becomes, suppose, more than 1 lakh, suppose it become 120. So this 20 is because of 1 lakh. If this 1 lakh was larger, your return was the larger. That is capital formation in terms of money. In physical sense, construction, infrastructure development. Once suppose a good road, good environment, good sanitation policies, better sanitation policies available. So obviously this will boost up the economic activity, this will make us healthy. So when the quality of life is going to be changed, our capacity of working becomes smoother, and this will be beneficial for the entire society as well as the economy. So it's a broader perspective. So in this way, you'll have to remember that to encourage savings and investment, and this will lead to the high capital formation. Might be some more objectives. When we see broadly all governments are working in this particular direction, and it's a long journey. It's not one day game. It will require a lot of efforts, lot of planning, proper planning, a systematic way of working, huge amount of capital. So that is what fiscal system. Okay. Initially, we discussed that fiscal system refers to the income and expenditure of the government. Income and expenditure. Expenditure comes later. Once we'll have the income, then we can decide easily where to spend. So we are going to give more focus on the income. And suppose I put a question to you: what are the main sources of income of the government? Obviously, I have seen that the answer is quite clear: taxation. Taxation is the main source of income for the government. So here we'll discuss each and every aspect relating to the taxation system. Okay. Suppose someone asks you what is tax. Generally in examination, no chance of this kind of question, but you must know tax is a kind of compulsory payment made by all those who are falling under tax bracket. And when we consider in detail, you will find that each and everyone directly or indirectly paying the taxes. Suppose, say for example, suppose a beggar, he's begging, and suppose he purchases a biscuit packet of rupees 5. Is he paying tax? Yes, he is also paying the tax, because tax has been already imposed on the packet of the biscuits. So in this way, in each and everyone is falling under tax bracket. Based on this perception, when we consider the different types of taxes, broadly two type of taxes are very prominent, and I think everyone is clear. But I have seen that when question is asked, how could you identify whether a tax is direct or indirect? I have seen that generally, so many people get confused. So you'll have to remember whatever has been mentioned here. Burden of tax cannot be shifted to others. So you'll remember that in case of direct taxes, the burden of tax cannot be shifted to others, which means that the point or the person to whom tax is imposed, that will be paid by the same person. There is no chance of shifting to other. Means in other words, you can say that the person on which the tax is imposed, he will pay. He cannot deviate, he cannot transfer to the others. So it can, the burden of tax cannot be shifted to others. So only this mechanism of shifting could decide whether the tax is direct or indirect. So you remember that in case of direct tax, no chance of shifting of burden of tax to others. Example, income tax, corporate tax. Corporate tax is imposed on the income of the companies. Suppose I declared my income 10 lakh. So it means that whatever the tax will be imposed on me, I will have to pay. I cannot shift to the others. Similarly, indirect tax, when the burden of tax fully or partially could be shifted to others. It just burden of tax fully or partially could be shifted to others. In both the cases, whether it is fully or partially, this will be considered as indirect tax. Okay. And the example is GST. GST is the new taxation system. We'll discuss in detail in the same chapter. But you must know that though GST was implemented on 1st July 2017, but before that there were several examples of the indirect taxes, and that's easy to understand. Suppose take the example of service tax. Service tax is imposed by the government on the service provider. Okay. Suppose mobile company is a service provider and we are the service user. Government imposed service tax on the mobile companies. But what mobile companies are doing? They just shift the burden of tax to others. Getting my point? As we recharge the mobile, immediately the recharged amount is bifurcated in two parts. Bifurcated, a certain part is credited to our account and a certain part goes to the company, and that is paid to the government. So in this way this is analyzed. So here you can see that in case of direct and indirect taxes, shifting of burden of tax plays vital role, and this is the only criteria to decide. But in this entire perspective of direct and indirect taxes, two terms are frequently used, two terms or two concepts are frequently used, and the meaning must be clear to us. That is impact of tax and incidence of tax. Just try to understand, it's very important. In both the cases of direct or indirect taxes, this is relevant. Impact of tax and incidence of tax. Conceptually, you will have to remember that whenever government, any government, thinks to impose taxes, they initially thinks where is the impact of the tax and where is the incidence of the tax. So just try to understand. Suppose on a person A, a certain tax is imposed. How can you know that whether it is direct or indirect? So if A is able to shift the burden of tax to B, that will be indirect tax. If there is no chances, that will be direct tax. Okay, the same example we have just discussed about. But and this phenomena is called shifting of tax. So shifting of tax is possible only in case of indirect taxes. But in this perspective, you need to think of where is the impact of tax and where is the incidence of tax. So as a concept, you will have to remember that those who are the first bearer of the tax, there will be impact of tax. Those who are the first bearer of the tax, there will be impact of tax. Means the person or the point at which the tax is imposed, there will be impact of tax. on the other hand, whereas those who are the final bearer, actual bearer, and the last bearer of the tax, there will be incidence of tax. So you'll have to remember, because I have seen the aspirant that get confused because opposite it also looks like correct. Okay, just take the example of income tax and just think over it. In case of income tax, where is impact and where is incidence? Both will be at the same point. Why? Because there is no chance to shift the burden of tax to others. Okay, but in case of indirect taxes, it is bifurcated, and the example is best example GST nowadays. Government is imposing GST over the producer and the shopkeepers. They are paying GST to the government. So where is the impact of tax? On the shopkeepers, on the producers. But what producers and shopkeepers are doing, in fact, they just add the value of GST to the price of commodity, and when we purchase the commodity, they just shift the burden from their own side to our side, and the burden of tax is shifted. So incidence on the end users, incidence of the tax in case of GST on the end users, on the last user, or the consumers. So you will remember that the incidence of indirect taxes, this is conceptual, concept must be clear to all of you. Always remember the incidence of indirect taxes, incidence of GST is always on the consumer. That's why this is called the destination based tax. So this funda must be always clear in your mind. So I can hope that till now we have, whatever we have discussed, you got the meaning of fiscal system, the long term common objectives of the fiscal system and fiscal policies, what is tax, and about two types of the taxes: direct tax, indirect tax, incidence of tax, and impact of tax, and shifting of taxes. Okay, I can hope that these things are this the whole analysis is clear to all of you. Okay, here there are some clarification and more facts with respect to the direct and indirect taxes we need to consider. Where there is first or initial imposition of tax, there is impact of tax, whereas those who are the actual or actual bearer of tax, there is incidence of tax. The same thing has been given. Tax to GDP ratio. But before going forward, one more information I'd like to share with you here. Out of total tax revenue of the government, out of total tax revenue of the government, you remember that the ratio of direct taxes has increased substantially during the past years, and now it has become around 50 to 55%. The ratio of, you remember that nowadays the ratio of direct taxes is more than the ratio of indirect taxes, and the ratio of direct taxes is around 55%. You can remember it. I am taking average the last sum of the years. When we start right from the beginning, suppose 95-96, you'll be surprised to know that in 95-96 the ratio of direct tax was hardly 30%. It means that the major part, that is 70% of the tax, was coming from the indirect taxes. But thereafter, whatever the reforms were brought to the taxation system, the ratio is going to be changed. One thing. Another thing is that the implication is that earlier government was largely depending for the resources on the indirect taxes, and now it is going to be shifted to the direct taxes, and incidence of the indirect taxes are always on the common people. So when government will be lesser dependent over the indirect taxes, this will be beneficial for the common people because there will be lesser burden of tax over the common people, and this is what exactly our entire taxation system is moving towards. These things will be clear to you gradually, because let me complete first. Okay, so you remember that the ratio of direct taxes are increasing, as compared to indirect taxes, and it has crossed more than 50%. It means that as of now, if 55% total tax revenue is coming from the direct taxes, rest 45% is coming from the indirect taxes. Okay. One more concept here with respect to all these analysis: tax to GDP ratio. Tax to GDP ratio is a very important concept and globally used. The meaning is that how much part of GDP is coming from taxation. So it just shows an comparison. It's nowhere talking about the value of GDP. Okay, they are talking about the ratio of both for a particular year. Okay, but generally when we talk about the tax to GDP ratio, it only shows that how much part of GDP, what is the size of taxes in the total GDP. In other words, how much part of GDP is coming in terms of taxes. In India, it has been around 12%, including a states, it is 16%. When we analyze and go in detail, you must know that this 12% tax to GDP ratio is falling among the poorest countries of the world. Like it could be compared with the African country. When we compare this figure with the highly developed countries of the world, in the developed countries of the world, it is more than 30-35%. In China, it is more than 20%. It means that in our country, even today, there is big potential of taxation. And it shows that a lot of problems in the existing taxation system. And that's why government imposed and started and launched GST in our country. So here the meaning, if suppose nowadays if the tax to GDP ratio is 12%, it simply means that if this year the GDP value is 100 rupees, so out of this 100 rupees, 12 rupees is paid in form of tax, which is very less. That is the meaning. Okay. Now the corporate tax. Here there are some information regarding the corporate tax. I have already told you corporate tax is imposed on the income of the companies and has been one of the largest source of revenue for the union government. You must just try to remember, try to understand, as income tax is imposed on the individual, on the person, on the individual person. Similarly, corporate tax is imposed on the income of the companies. Okay, and having seen the changes in our economy, the increased number of the corporate class and the increased income in the corporate class, the revenue collected from the corporate tax has been substantial during the past years, and it has been considered one of the largest source of revenue for the Union government. Okay, one more option here. Direct taxes are of four types. Initially we talked about direct and indirect taxes, but simultaneously you must remember there are four different types of direct taxes. Easy to understand and very important. Okay, progressive tax. Progressive tax is that tax under which a rate of tax increases with increase in income. Repeat, progressive tax is that tax under which a rate of tax increases as income increase. Means if income is increasing, so rate of tax is also increasing. That is called progressive tax. If this kind of symptoms is available in any tax, that will be referred to as progressive tax. A regressive tax is opposite to progressive tax. It means the rate of tax decreases with increase in income. So you must know, in general practice, in the welfare governments, in democratic countries, regressive taxes are not possible. These kind of taxes are not being imposed by any government because it is regressive in nature. Income is increasing and tax is decreasing. But even after that, there might be some example, and the you can say example or reverse trend in the taxation system. So wherever this kind of trends, negative trends are present and found, it is tried to be removed. Okay, so that is regressive tax. There is no recent example. Some experts are saying that before independence, the taxes imposed by the Britishers on the salt, salt tax was one of the example of the progressive tax. More taxes were imposed on more higher salt tax were imposed on the poor people and lesser on the rich people, and that's why the Mr. Mahatma Gandhi got the chance to mobilize the public against the British government. Third category of direct tax is proportional tax. The rate of tax is fixed. Under proportional tax, rate of tax is fixed, and corporate tax is the example of the. There might be more taxes also. Under corporate tax, the rate is fixed. Suppose for a longer period, the rate of corporate tax was 30%. So whatever the income of the companies, they will have to pay 30% of the income. 1 lakh 30%, 2 lakh 30%, 3 lakh 30%. So when the rate is fixed, amount may change, may vary according to the income, but the rate is fixed. So in such a way, proportional tax is, well, you remember that it is that rate of tax under which rate of tax is fixed. Okay. Digressive tax. Digressive tax is combination of progressive and proportional, one and third. Progressive and proportional, which means that up to some extent the rate of tax increases as income increase, but thereafter it is constant. It is also mentioned here. Digressive tax combination of progressive and proportional taxes. So it means that up to some extent it is progressive and thereafter it becomes constant. And the best example is the income tax. Why income tax is the best example of the digressive tax? Because in our country, up to 0% to 30%, 0% to 0% to 30%, as income is increasing, the rate of tax is also increasing, but thereafter it is constant. There is no higher tax slab above 30%. It means up to 30% it is progressive, and beyond that only 30% will be paid. So that's why this is income tax is the best example of digressive tax. This diagram will help you to understand it properly. Number 1 is indicating progressive tax. The rate of tax is here on the y-axis, on the x-axis the income. Suppose if income will be here, the rate of tax will be here. Suppose income is increasing toward this side, so rate of tax will be also increased. So this is best example of the number 1 line is showing the progressive tax, and regressive just opposite. Income will be higher and the rate of tax will be lower. Not possible in practice. Third, proportional tax, rate of tax is fixed, suppose 30%, say for example. If it is fixed, whatever the income is there, this will increase accordingly. Okay, so in this way it is discussed as proportional tax. Fourth is digressive tax. Up to a it is progressive, thereafter it is proportional, and both are available, that's why it becomes digressive tax. So in this way we got the idea of progressive, regressive, proportional, and regressive taxes. Okay, now come on the another part. You'll remember that taxes imposed on goods and commodities are of two types. So till now we talked about 6 type of taxes: direct, indirect, progressive, regressive, proportional, and digressive. Once again, you must remember taxes imposed on goods and commodities are of two types. The first one is a specific tax. Remember that a specific tax, when the tax is imposed on the basis of weight or quantity, commodities, only commodities. So either the value will be the base or the amount or weight. So when the tax is imposed on any commodity on the basis of weight or quantity, that is known as a specific tax. Another